and maybe even keep out some of the pests through air sealing or other measures that were mentioned. The last theme for addressing barriers to participation was autonomy. Many of the customers we spoke with really wanted to make a decision on their own terms, and they didn't want to feel like they were being pressured into it or being sold something. So as a result, many were hesitant to want to talk to or put their trust in someone new, like a utility program representative. And this really also highlights the need for providing access to detailed information mentioned earlier. But another way to provide more autonomy could be to reach customers through organizations that they already know and trust. We found through our interviews that just under half of the community organizations we interviewed knew about National Grid's offerings, and very few really had a deep understanding of how their customers could benefit from them. So I think there is an opportunity there for the utilities and community organizations to work together. We also include here some recommendations specific to renters and landlords. As mentioned before, landlords are often faced with limited time periods in which to make improvements. They're generally making emergency replacements or trying to make improvements between tenants. Several that we spoke to had participated in National Grid's program and mentioned, the amount of time it took for them. So, developing some sort of fast track path for them to help move things along more quickly or fit it into a condensed or specific time frame could be useful. And as shown on the figure here, which it comes from our survey, renters experience issues in the home like drafty or broken windows, discomfort, mold, and poor air quality at higher rates than homeowners. So educating landlords and renters on some of the non-energy benefits of making energy efficiency improvements might help motivate improvements. And surveyed renters thought their landlords would be more likely to make needed repairs or health and safety improvements than energy efficiency improvements. So, there may be some opportunities in the messaging there to reach more landlords and property managers. So how is this research being used? The utility has made some updates to program materials. They are continuing to engage with community-based organizations to really understand how the two can work better together to serve customers and reach them with energy efficiency programs. The utility is also investigating electric resistance heat customers to better understand barriers to installing heat pumps, which could provide more efficient heat. And Illum Advising and CADEO continue to support with additional research as well. And so what can you do? If you're interested in finding more information about utility energy efficiency programs and offerings, you can check out the State of Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources website or the Rhode Island Energy Efficiency Program website. If you work with or for a community-based organization, think about how you might be able to connect the community served with utility run or even other energy efficiency programs, and help spread the word about energy efficiency programs. And this can be outside of Rhode Island as well. Most utilities in most states offer rebates and incentives for making energy efficiency improvements. And if you are interested in learning more about the research we conducted and our findings, the full report and an executive summary are available on the Rhode Island Energy Efficiency and Resource Management Council website. All right, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Shannon, for that detailed walkthrough of the non-participant study. I hope that gave everyone a sense of the level of rigor in the analysis that goes into optimizing program design and also understanding consumer behavior. So sticking to the theme of behavior, I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Dr. Norbert Mundorf, a professor of communication studies at the University of Rhode Island here. He holds a PhD from Indiana University. With his background in communication, he's involved in interdisciplinary initiatives to promote sustainable transportation, resilience, and health. He has collaborated on issues related to virtual mobility and sustainable energy, including the impact of transportation choices on health and active living. His work incorporates sustainability, behavior, and preparedness for the impacts of climate change. In addition, Dr. Mundorf is involved with the sustainability minor here at URI. Welcome.
Great. Thank you. So I'll be taking a little bit more broader approach and looking at multiple paths to sustainable behaviors here, and get together from the abstract. But I'll come back to energy. It has covered multiple times. Even though my background is actually more sustainable transportation. So if you see the occasional bicycle in here, that's bicycle commuter. All right. Okay. So because you're here, you're aware of these various issues related to energy and energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, etc. And so, some of the goals that we're looking at. So some of the goals we're looking at, obviously, health benefits, livable communities, and of course, savings. So actually, this slide connects to what Shannon talked about, because we're looking at different segments of the population. There's a large segment of people that are not ready for change. And it's very often, if you're sort of in this whole thing, it's hard to look outside and understand that people are often not ready. And Shannon mentioned that about 40% that don't understand, what these energy programs entail, much less the details. And of course, so we need to reach those. Different ways of doing it, and it's certainly not easy. But we also need to encourage those who are ready, because and now I know we just heard that a lot of people are already signing up for the heat pump program that's out there. It was just announced, and so there's a lot of readiness now, but still a large part of the population, and especially the segments that Shannon mentioned, are not ready for change. So one of the goals that we have is to shift what's called the decisional balance towards change. So people are often torn, is it too expensive? Do I want to do? Is it too much trouble? All those kinds of things. But then again, there's of course we'd like to balance off the benefits of change. And beyond the benefits of change, confidence is especially important. Often people feel that they can't really, there's a lot of challenges. For instance, let's say if you want to insulate your attic, first you have to get rid of all the luggage and boxes and everything that's up there, and so to create like a situation where it can actually be done, and so confidence that you can actually make a change is critical. Overall, of course, we also want to promote lifestyle changes and changes in attitudes. So we've talked about the different levels of impact, and obviously recently there's been a lot of public policy initiatives, government subsidies, etc. Same thing at the community level. Then again, also the organizational level, such as URI, or organizations such as URI is represented here. But probably most important for this kind of change is interpersonal and individual level, because we want, we need to get people in their families talking about these changes. And of course, also you have to convince individuals to make up their minds. So we try to hit all these levels, and it's complicated. One of the models that I've been using, we've been using for our behavior change is the stages of change model that was developed at URI by Jim Cheskin, no longer with us. And so we looked at the stages of change model, which is somewhat similar to what Sharon presented earlier. So a large group of large segments, pre-contemplation stage, where they either are not aware of problems, or they are not, they don't think anything can be done, etc. And the contemplation would be weighing pros and cons of change, moving through operation action, then finally to maintenance. So one of the key variables here is the decision balance to increase the advantages of changing and to reduce the disadvantages of changing. So, and the research has shown that in the early stages, it is most important to focus on the benefits of changing, whereas later on, the key is to reduce the downsides, the cons of change. So the pros and cons, the sort of balance. Right. Okay, so as far as energy, to increase the pros, looking at the quality of life, especially when extreme weather involved, long-term cost, savings and incentives, the readiness for climate change impacts, which is, as we know, is increasing, social support, friends, family, community organizations, etc. And then for many people, it's also important to have something green self-image. Now, as far as decreasing cons, we heard from Shannon that time is an important factor. Upfront cost is a factor. Convenience or inconvenience is a factor. And then, of course, also culture in general, lack of education, or maybe language, things like that. And another variable that comes into play is confidence or self-efficiency, efficacy, that we can actually make the change. All right. Okay. So that's the first part. The second part of my lecture, I'm going to talk briefly about multiple behaviors. So this is an interesting research that also comes out of the Prochaska model, basically looking at multiple behaviors. And the premise is that if you change one or two behaviors, that you can also change other behaviors along with it. So yeah, as a from a communication point of view, why is it so difficult to get the message across? First of all, it's complicated. What's the connection between your energy use and climate change, for instance, things like that. Often the things that we're dealing with have long-term impact, both in terms of impacting climate, but also in terms of the benefits, realizing benefits. Okay. And then finally, we heard Shannon talk about all the different things that can go wrong outside of energy efficiency. So people have what's been called a limited pool of worry. So there's only so many things that you can worry about. If you have a sewage issue, you don't have enough to heat, obviously energy efficiency may be down the road. Scientific consensus is overwhelming, but how do we get it across? So get into the audience values and mindsets, which requires that you identify the core values of your audience and try to affirm it while making the point. We have looked at this from different fields of inquiry. I don't really want to details here. But so this multiple behavior change that I mentioned earlier, it works, for instance, for diet and exercise. So I wonder if it's also sustainable behavior or energy. So for instance, they did an energy balance intervention compared to a substance abuse intervention. Found that in the energy balance group, that also reduced smoking and alcohol use over time more than the direct substance use prevention. So the idea is if you can change one type of behavior, it may translate to other behaviors as well. So yeah, there's a few classes that are put together multiple behaviors where we can see one behavior can influence another one. And of course, social equity is a key factor as well. Active living, quality of life, energy, and food. And finally, at the community level, multiple sustainable behaviors and also cluster together, but implement change at different levels. So in conclusion, my proposal, I would suggest is to apply these lessons from health, behavior, and communication to energy. So first of all, obviously, we need information, we need understandable and good information. We also need decision-making support because people are confused. Also, we need to change social norms because our society is not primarily focused on sustainable energy efficiency, but on many other things. So, how can we change these norms? And finally, support network that can help people within their community to move through these things. And overall, we need to build a culture of sustainability at URI in Rhode Island everywhere. And finally, it's all humor. You can read it. What if it's big hoax and we create a better world? And finally, a piece of utopia. This is a picture from Germany. The train station in Göttingen, where you see about 1,000 bicycles, and people take the train, get on their bike, and then they get on the 4-lane bike highway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Condor, for that detailed primer on behavior change and the outcomes of change behavior. It's actually something that ties well into a theme that's been brought to the forefront of energy efficiency programs now, a theme that was explored in the non-participant study that Shannon described earlier, which is, behavior change. How do we empower consumers, to the point where they have self-efficacy and they participate in programs and want to make change that are going to benefit themselves? It also ties into some of the themes that our final speaker, Emily Koo, is going to be covering. Emily Koo is a fellow graduate of Bragg University. She got her Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Studies and is currently Senior Policy Advocate and Rhode Island Program Director for Acadia Center. She works to advance Acadia Center's efforts to promote and implement energy and climate policy reforms in Rhode Island. She continues to serve as a member of the State of Rhode Island Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council Advisory Board, another mouthful. Prior to joining Acadia Center, Emily spent many years in local government for the city of Providence, including serving as the Director of Sustainability.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here alongside Adrian, Shannon, and Norbert to discuss energy. Oh, doing this one. This one working. Right up, right. Okay. Okay. Great. A lot of things on this desk. To discuss participation and equity in Rhode Island's energy efficiency programs. Okay, Acadia Center is a nonprofit organization with staff and programs across the Northeast. Our mission is to advance bold, effective, and equitable clean energy solutions. Our work prioritizes consumer benefits, public health, economic growth, and the equitable distribution of benefits across a range of programs, from the phasing out of fossil fuels to transportation to utility reform and innovation, as well as, of course, energy efficiency. Acadia Center has long been involved in the development of energy efficiency and promoting the importance of utility investments of energy efficiency as the most cost-effective energy option. We played a key role here in Rhode Island and in other states across the region in advocating for the creation of stakeholder boards like our Energy Efficiency Council here in Rhode Island, which guide efficiency programs, budgets, and goals on behalf of all of us as ratepayers. The regional grid operator here in New England relies on energy efficiency resources for over 14% of the power it needs for the region, which is the greatest in the nation. Millions of homes and businesses have received efficiency services, which have reduced energy bills, avoided billions of dollars of higher cost energy resources, and improved public health. This graphic here provides a snapshot of a single year and the significant full-time jobs, avoided generation, as well as avoided emissions, and the participants served by energy efficiency programs in a year. So Shannon provided a really excellent overview of the various barriers that are preventing customers here in Rhode Island from participating in energy efficiency programs. I wanted to provide another high-level overview of the program pathway for energy efficiency programs, which at various points, a customer may very reasonably not follow through to the next step. I wanted to get a sense of the room, actually. How many of you have gotten a home energy audit? Oh, well, I mean, it's the audience. And then how many of you have gotten weatherization? A little, slightly fewer. Okay. So first, as described, you need to know about the range of benefits of energy efficiency and ideally learn about the available energy efficiency programs, which here are available through the utility from a trusted community partner. In the case of low and moderate income customers, there are steps to take to officially qualify as a customer in that class and qualify for enhanced rebates. But let's say a customer has learned about the program, has decided it's worth their time. Shannon talked about like whether or not something is worth taking the time to do, and they've gone through the trouble of either working with their CAP agency to learn about the program, qualify for the program, or if you're a moderate income or a market rate customer, which is where I have more direct experience, you've gone through the trouble of reaching out to Rise Engineering on your own to schedule that home energy audit as a first step. So it's incredible. We've gotten past those first two blocks of knowing about the program and taking action to participate, kind of speaking to Norbert's decision-making model. You've gotten that support to start to the path at least. But there are so many additional points at which the customer may fall off, and really not the capacity from the utility or Rise or really there's no one taking the lead if you're not a low income customer to really support you throughout this process, follow up with you, support you to troubleshoot. Norbert mentioned kind of creating a support network and more of a concierge program. So I've just highlighted some of the steps and things that might get you stuck along the way. So the wait types for audits can be incredibly long. When I got an audit, I became a homeowner and immediately called Rise to get in line. It was about a 3-month wait in 2021. And then once the work finally happens, you receive a home energy report that's customized to you with a long list of energy actions, the costs, the rebates. It's great. You have that information. You're not obligated to do anything with it. You have a lot of decisions to make, a lot of investments to make in your home. Life is really busy. And it can be hard to understand the incentives and decide where to start. It takes a lot of persistence, not only to reach Rise, I'm sure they've improved, but also to identify contractors, solicit quotes for that work, decide on the contractor. I think Norbert also mentioned decision-making support. That would have been really nice. And leverage available incentives. And even with rebates and incentives, the upfront cost of some of this work can be really prohibitive. In Providence and Rhode Island, we often see knob and tube in the tens of thousands of dollars as a pre-weatherization barrier. That doesn't allow many people to pursue many of these weatherization benefits. So you might also have to explore endless options for financing, which involves consideration of credit scores and consideration of existing debt and your ability to take on a loan to afford weatherization. And in addition, let's say the customer is ready to go with the contractor and financing. There may still be lead time on the availability of a contractor that you want to go with, as well as supply chain issues, which further delays the outcome of a weatherized home. So that's just a high level. Acadia Center works closely with the ERMC to review and provide feedback on the utility Rhode Island Energy's energy efficiency plans and their energy efficiency plan development. We also participate in 2 utility run. This is pretty wonky. I didn't know these existed before, but we also participate in 2 utility run energy efficiency working groups, which also aim to inform their development of an annual energy efficiency plan and a 3-year energy efficiency plan. Both are happening right now. These are the Energy Efficiency Technical Working Group and the Energy Efficiency Equity Working Group, both of which meet monthly, except that the Equity Working Group didn't get started till like June this year. So I wanted to focus the rest of my presentation here on the Equity Working Group, or the EWG. The EWG is in its 3rd year, and in both year 1 and year 2, they produced written recommendations, which were included as attachments to and referred to in the utilities annual reports and plans, formerly National Grid, now Rhode Island Energy. Members of the Equity Working Group have included outreach partners like the CAP agencies that are doing a lot of the on-the-ground support for low-income, moderate customers to access these programs, as well as policy advocates like myself. And while compensation is available and offered to encourage wider participation, no one has actually taken advantage of that yet. It's a pretty wonky working group to be aware of and to be willing to attend during a workday, even if it's compensated. So this working group, the utility funds and guides the direction and outcomes of the body, which does pose challenges to its accountability. In contrast, in Massachusetts, the Equity Working Group is a subcommittee of their stakeholder council, their equivalent of the ERMC. You could argue there are benefits. It is the utilities' work and data, and they're trying to loop in stakeholders to inform their work. But what I've observed in my somewhat limited exposure to the group this year has been that really the recommendations of the Equity Working Group have been sort of pinned to the end of the report. There are lots of broad references by the utility to their commitment to equity, but it's hard to connect the dots between those recommendations and what's actually being acted upon by the utility, and seeing how it informs how they report regularly on equity. So specifically, the company has avoided establishing meaningful metrics to track progress in its planning process. So what I outlined here and in the next 2 slides are the metrics provided in the utility's quarterly equity reports. So in 2023, we've seen quarter 1 and quarter 2 equity reports, followed by the specific measurable equity metrics and examples of annual targets for 2024 that I recently proposed on behalf of the Acadia Center, and the EWG hopefully will be able to also recommend a bit more specific measurable metrics for the utility to incorporate into its work over the coming year. So on the uptake and performance side of things, the utility reports on the number of assessments and number of weatherizations that are done in specific geographic areas. There's a table for each of those, a lot of numbers. The geographic area, I believe, is census designated place. It's not exactly town. In some cases, they're villages. I inquired about it, haven't quite, not quite sure. But the proposed metrics are really to understand the full universe of customers in a geographic area, to understand the percentage uptake of home energy audits. I feel it would be valuable to put the number of assessments and number of weatherizations in each geographic area side by side to understand the conversion rates and how that may differ in different areas of the state. Again, to have a more meaningful geographic categorization, whether it is by just municipality, which might mean more and might translate to outreach in those cities and towns, or to group the areas of the state by service outreach area, or for example, CAP agencies, so that the uptake of home energy audits and weatherization conversion rates could be translated into specific outreach in locations that have lower rates. And I mentioned earlier pre-weatherization barriers. I think it's also really important to understand the current resolution of pre-weatherization barriers that are identified in home energy audits, and then for the utility to set the target to improve that the next year, as well as to understand any discrepancies based on geographic area, income, or so forth. And so I also provided example targets for 2024, for example, 20% of eligible customers participating in home energy audits, or a 50% conversion rate. For outreach and engagement metrics, I really encourage the utility to focus a little bit less on the inputs, such as listing outreach and education events that are attended, and focus more on outcomes, the results of those contacts. So similar to what I mentioned, I would like to understand the full possible participants in an area to understand the percentage of customers reached at outreach events. I think it could be helpful to understand the actual interactions, how many of those are renters, homeowners, income eligible versus market rates. Maybe some people that reach at events are from Massachusetts, so it wasn't as effective. But what really needs to be done is there needs to be a linkage between those outreach events and the translation to how many of those people that are reached actually act on getting a home energy audit, and then further, how many of those continue to get weatherization to understand the impact of this outreach work. Further, the listing of organizations targeted to conduct energy efficiency training, I would, of course, want to know more detail about how many organizations are funded. We'll talk about that later. The number of individuals trained in different areas of the state in order to educate their community about energy efficiency programs, and the number of specific referrals. So ideally, a CAP agency or a cultural organization would be funded to educate their community, and then would be able to say, in Q1, I referred 10 of my community members to get a home energy audit, and 3 of them did it. So again, I offer specific numbers on reaching customers, referrals from community organizations, perhaps even using something as simple as Justice 40 to understand the geographic reach of outreach by the utility, and say 40% of outreach events would be conducted in EJ communities. Finally, workforce development and training metrics. The EWG recommendation last year was actually to set concrete goals for minority women-owned business hiring or spending. That was one of many recommendations, and we have not seen that yet. There is a broader commitment to coordinating and partnering with community-based and minority organizations. The proposed metric would be something along the lines of the percentage of weatherization jobs done by WMBEs, or you could also decide to look at the percentage of spending by WMBEs. You could also note that it is challenging to become qualified as a WMBE, so you could have some other kind of self-attestation or way of understanding what kinds of contractors, subcontractors are doing the work of energy efficiency, and really seeing the benefits of the full-time jobs of scaling our energy efficiency programs. And again, would want to see more meaningful geographic categorization to understand how these benefits are distributed across the state. Finally, a consistent recommendation of the EWG. I saw this recommendation also in Shannon's presentation from the non-participant market study, is to commit funding to trusted community organizations. And to their credit, the utility has proposed a demonstration in 2024 to engage nonprofits working in equity communities, specifically committing $40,000 to organizations to provide direct education and outreach and create leads for adoption of EE programs. Our response in the EWG is, this is awesome, great, not sufficient, but we are pleased to see and track the success of providing this funding to a nonprofit organization in order to hire a part-time energy advocate so that they can serve as that concierge to take landlords and renters from education through adoption of energy efficiency programs. That's really the kind of support that the EWG and the non-participant study believes will help move the utility further towards its equity energy efficiency goals. The comparison in Massachusetts, the Community First Partnership also provides funding to community organizations at a scale of about 40 to 60K per organization. And they're still working through a lot of the details of that, but that just provides kind of a point of reference. And what I would really like to see is transparency on the utilities marketing and outreach budget overall to better understand kind of how the resources are going towards the inputs, what kind of outcomes are resulting, and how the equity working group could potentially provide feedback on those outcomes and inputs. I think I pressed it. It's just an overview slide. Oh, whoops. Which in sum, the recommendations that I've observed have provided on behalf of the KD Center and have contributed to the equity working group is to encourage our energy efficiency program administrator, the utility, to set annual targets based on past performance, those results that Shannon shared of the non-participant study and other sources, so that there is a goal that we can work towards and understand progress towards. Really to provide a template for quarterly metric reporting, equity metric reporting. I feel that's really the crux of what the equity working group should be developing with the utility and understanding the utility's achievement towards an annual target, establishing meaningful geographic areas, placing numbers on energy audits and weatherization in the context of the universe, the geographic area, the conversion rates, focusing less on inputs, more on outcomes, and then of course, allocating meaningful funding to community-based organizations to help do this work. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I'd just like to say thanks for our amazing panel of speakers, Emily, Shannon, and Dr. Mundorf. Appreciate you all sharing your knowledge and insights with all of us. So with that, I would like to invite you all to the front for some Q&A. Internet, want to open with any questions, comments?
So one of the common themes, I think, from all of the presentations is, at least, I don't know how other people in the audience feel, but it feels to me that Rhode Island Energy's efforts are all kind of greenwashing, that they're just doing the least amount that they can to keep the policy makers off of their backs and maximize profits. And, you know, Emily, you got it like started to get at things they might be required to do to really show results. But, you know, is that feeling inaccurate in your opinion? And if it isn't, you know, what can policymakers be doing to hold the utilities' feet to the fire to really provide this concierge type service that makes it easy to implement the weatherization programs, for example?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that comment. And it's something that we do pay attention to, particularly as a consultant for the Energy Efficiency Council. The goal for the council is to maximize benefits to ratepayers. That's everyone. If we consume energy, there's an energy efficiency surcharge that funds the program. So what we've identified is that there are several customer groups that haven't been able to access program benefits. So it's something that we continually kind of hold the company accountable for. And that takes the form of optimizing program design, doing market research to identify shortfalls within programs, and continually working to optimize them.
Yeah, I think has been a bit of a bumpy transition with the acquisition of the company, and I am new to the scene as well. But I think there is a lot of kind of immediate transparency and learning that we can hopefully push the company to do, following even just Massachusetts lead on providing more transparency on their equity budgets and being more specific. And I've kind of commented at the ERMC that I really do feel that the council should could play that role of helping keep the utility accountable. And there could also reasonably be a legislative action to also push the utility in that direction. But it really is this stakeholder body that's working on behalf of all of us as ratepayers.
Hi, this is a question for Shannon Call. You outlined a long list of potential obstacles for people taking advantage of these programs, but there wasn't that much in the way of a ranking of them. I was wondering if you might be able to say or if you could say with any confidence, which things are the most important? Which of those obstacles are the biggest?
I think that's a very good question. And we did not structure our research study to be able to answer it that way. But certainly, I mean, awareness is a critical issue, right? Like if customers don't know the programs exist, they have zero chance of participating. So, I mean, obviously, I think that is a big one. And also I think we found that 40% of customers did not know about the programs, but many of those who sure, I know the utility offers these programs, they don't really necessarily have a great understanding of what the programs are, really all about, how to participate, et cetera. So I guess I don't have hard data, but based on our study, I do feel that the awareness of the programs and really having an understanding of what the program is and how to participate, what the different options are, what rebates are available, how to get them are pretty critical barriers to address first.
Well, I think the other part which you also is in your study, I think there's that the social support piece is often missing. And I think in your study you found that of the community organizations only, there's a large percentage that don't understand these programs either. So they might be intermediaries or concierge services, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And really, I liked what you said about the limited pool of worry, helping make the connection from energy efficiency to some of the things that are in someone's pool of worry. It can help tie that together, help, make it all fit, so to speak, in the amount of worry that they have. So I think that is another important barrier to address.
Yeah, and to supplement that just a bit, again, it boils down to kind of rational choice. If customers are aware of the potential benefits they can get from participating in the programs, all the effort that's required to go through the participation process and actually reap the benefits, they'd be motivated to make that decision.
This is a really important topic in terms of energy efficiency. I have a little different perspective. I think you guys are going to be the most popular kids on the block because in the next 5 years, energy costs are going to be increasing at such a significant rate. It's going to be a deluge of people wanting energy efficiency programs. And whether you're not in your RISE or the utility or nonprofit information, people are going to be coming out of the woodworks because the price is going to be so high for energy, electric energy in particular. And right now, between politics and the economy, the critical problems we have right now with delivery of the non-carbon solutions, such as offshore wind, is a gigantic problem. So the alternatives are not great, but energy efficiency is going to be one of the major strategies to be able to offset until this mess gets settled out. But it's a 5-year problem.
Yeah, agreed. And some of the typical, nomenclature around demand side management resources dubs it the least cost energy resource. It's a lot less costly to, not have to build new pipelines or power lines or what have you, energy infrastructure. It's a lot easier to, not have to generate it.
I'm not sure if it's a question or if it's a comment that I have, but are there any parallels that could be drawn from the adoption of electric vehicles? I'm just sort of thinking about it, like the investment that it takes for solar panels or for a heat pump, that upfront cost. I think maybe 10 years ago, I didn't see any electric vehicles, and now I feel like every third car I see is electric. So if the automotive industry can do it and can communicate the benefits and, why can't we? Why is it so hard? I mean, it's $40,000 or $50,000 to get an electric vehicle, and you could, make the same investment into your own home. Anyway, that's all I have. Cars are sexier.
Yeah, I would definitely say that we are much further along on energy efficiency awareness or at least uptake than electric vehicles. I very much still feel that on the electric vehicle side of things, we've been quite dependent on policy and regulations to help increase uptake. Rhode Island is about to adopt advanced clean cars too, and advanced clean trucks which will shift the provision of manufactured electric vehicles in the states, and subsequently the state will have to leverage federal and other funding to ensure that we have the charging infrastructure to ensure that all of the electric vehicles that will be coming into the market can be charged by all customers. So I think that's an interesting perspective, but I think that we're much further away from uptake. Well, given the recent advanced clean cars regulation, before that, I would say we were far, far away from massive uptake of EVs than energy efficiency, which New England and Rhode Island has been a leader on for decades.
Well, I think it's also, again, it's a matter of the culture, because electric vehicles have gotten much more visibility than sort of heat pumps. People don't even know what heat pumps are yet at this point. So there's a lot of visibility and explanation and knowledge gap.
And if I can supplement that, again, it's about communicating the benefits, creating programs that effectively move customers along that, decisional balance. And, another thing to point out as well is the goal is to make energy efficiency the norm. So we kind of have to meet customers where they are. When someone is making a decision to purchase a new car, upgrade one, you're seeing an increase in popularity of EVs. So people, have higher propensity to make that decision. So we want energy efficiency to be the norm. If I'm replacing a heating system, why don't I look for the most efficient one? So I think that's what we're trying to shift programs to get to.
Can't help myself. So through work we're doing right now with the Energy Efficiency and Resource Management Council, we have been trying to forge relationships with something called the health equity zones in Rhode Island, which are it's a really amazing construct that is administered through the Department of Health. And one of the ideas that we have, and Emily, you touched on this, and I think what Dr. Mundorf was talking about, and Shannon, you alluded to it too. You know, there's a lot of distrust of either the utility or your own landlord. And so what if we teach people in the community that we're trying to serve about this stuff, kind of break it down, so that it's not an ethereal concept that a lot of smart people are talking about being good, and really break it down to brass tacks and say, this not only helps air quality in your home, but also, you know, it'll make your bills less. And so I guess I'm wondering if there are good models. I know we do a little bit of it with maybe building futures in Rhode Island or One Neighborhood Builders, but wondering if there are any models that any of you know of where we're mobilizing people in the communities we've been talking about tonight to actually be boots on the ground and approach a neighbor and say, hey, did you know you could do this? And no, you're not going to get hurt, or, you know, whatever the fear is. I just wondered if you guys talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we just need to fund those individuals and community organizations to do that. I think the utility and institutions have a record of just asking people to do that for free. And a lot of nonprofits do that for free, and cap agencies. But the model I would refer to is in Massachusetts. MassSave has the Community First Partnership. All in Energy started as a nonprofit that was funded outside, but now they're actually being funded by the utilities in Massachusetts. They provide the training, and then they hire local folks in communities to be energy advocates and to do that provision of education. They're trusted leaders in their communities. They speak the languages of the communities. So I think following that model, and I think that's what the demonstration is looking to do, but just in a single, it's just one. And yeah, I don't know if that.
We could just scale it up. Yeah, I really think that might help. Really advocating for that.
Yeah, I think, you know, that question you asked is something that we're still trying to figure out too. And I know other utilities that I'm working with are trying to figure out as well. So I'm definitely going to be looking into this Community First Partnership in Massachusetts more to understand that better, and have some of our other utility clients look into that as a model, because it sounds like a perfect, maybe not perfect, a great start.
I happen to just know Massachusetts a little bit. I just learned from my Connecticut colleague. They also have a similar program that's funded by the
great.
utility that funds community organizations to do outreach on energy efficiency. I bet it exists in a lot of places around the country.
Mhm.
When you're saying about the funding that's in Massachusetts and Connecticut for these programs, that's because you have two companies, Eversource and National Grid, that operate in multiple states, and they just piggyback their programs across the jurisdictions. Now that Grid's out of Rhode Island, I think what needs to be done with Rhode Island Energy, they'll soon be in to do their 3-year plan again and do these things. And they get incentives for what they do for success. And all these companies tout how New England is a leader in energy efficiency in the country. So I just think you have to change the incentives for what they get their incentives for in these programs, and take the money away from simple participation and put it in for, okay, if one is just shy of the baseline for achievement, 2 is your baseline to get your incentive, and go 3 and you get even a bonus incentive. And that's what motivates them to make these changes and just shift that. And it's the same thing. Now that everybody's on performance-based rate making programs, you have to make meaningful metrics for them to get their revenue change as part of their 5-year plan. And so you need to change the idea of what it is. They want to do participation because it's easy to hold a meeting like this, count how many people are in the room, and get credit for participation. Hold 10 of these and meet your goal. Where, which you, again, you have to focus on is what Emily was talking, is what's the results of this, and only get rewarded for results, no more for just the push. The push period's over for this stuff. And I don't know how you feel about that.
That's a great point. I do feel like I've only scratched the surface of understanding and asking the utility to voluntarily report on these equity metrics in a more robust manner. But they've also asked for feedback on performance incentive based. Maybe Adrian can speak to this.
Yeah, and appreciate the comment. To your point, at least over the past couple of years, the program performance incentive mechanism through which Rhode Island Energy is an investor-owned utility, so they do get performance incentives from hitting certain program goals. So I've seen the paradigm shift from, to your point, basically being based on participation. It was just based on the achievement of the savings goals. Now what we're trying to do is modify the program performance incentive mechanism to, again, to your point, result in actual good outcomes. So, energy savings is still a great outcome and still a goal of the programs, but now it's in this broader envelope of statewide climate goals. And, there's electric vehicles and, change in the generation mix. So it's something that we're actively reviewing now. We're, looking to recommend a performance incentive mechanism that incorporates an equity component, but it doesn't have to stop there. We can make sure that the performance incentive is, again, tied directly to the outcomes that we want to see.
Just have a quick comment. I worked for Mass Save. I worked for Rise Engineering. And Darrell is with NEC Solar. So one of my first discovery questions is, when was your last free home energy audit? Because I believe you're eligible every 3 years. Most people don't know the value, and it's a use it or lose it. If you look on page 2, we're funding these programs. So when a customer says, "Oh, I just bought all new bulbs from Home Depot," I'm like, "Congratulations, you paid for them twice." So I see the value of the program, and it's not one size fits all. Knob and tube with the older homes, one customer next to a neighbor gets free installation or heavily discounted. The next person has an obstacle to do that work. So get a free home energy audit. It doesn't cost you anything. I work with one of the subcontractors that does the weatherization work. So I sort of have a backdoor into Rise. So that's all I got.
Sure, Adrian, or can I put you on the spot and talk about the ERC?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So again, as I alluded to at the beginning of this lecture, I'm a consultant for the Energy Efficiency and Resource Management Council. And again, it's a board of volunteers that's charged with representing all constituents in the state. So there's a council that represents low-income users, homeowners, renters, landlords, municipalities, and nonprofits. So as part of our or the council's legislative duty in overseeing energy efficiency program implementation, we also comment on the plans and monitor program performance data on an ongoing basis. We have a council meeting next week at the Department of Administration building on the 28th from 3 to 5 p.m., where we will be presenting our findings on the 3-year plan for 2024 through 2026. Present those findings to the council, and then provide our feedback to Rhode Island as well. So again, we're constantly involved in it's not just the consultants, but it's also Acadia Center and other stakeholders, participating to contribute to this process. So all the council meetings are public. They are also live streamed, and there's a link that's posted on their websites with the agendas. So again, if you do have feedback on the programs and want to provide comments, even if you can't attend the meetings in person, you're able to provide public comment in written format through the Energy Efficiency Council's website. So hope that's helpful.
So Rachel reminded me, there are annual reports. I'm sure you all want to go home with one. And there's a lot of information in those reports. They're spiral bound on the front table. You're welcome to take one home. Keep it on your bedside table. Well, first of all, thank you to our speakers, and thank you, Shannon, who I think went back to Wisconsin, but let's give them a round of applause. Adrian, I think you have a bright future in moderation. I just want to say that. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to mention, because we didn't in the beginning, that if you registered to be here tonight, we will send you, this goes for those of you at home too, we'll send you a survey just to take your pulse on what you thought about tonight. Hopefully you can push the tech stuff out of your head and really think about the content that we provided. Every program that we offer through extension, we measure the effectiveness of it on your behavior. So it's just a quick 3 questions. Thank you so much in advance for filling that out. And if anyone would like to learn more about any of the programming we have at Extension, my business card's up in the front. And lastly, I have to mention that we have 2 more lectures in this series. The next one is Wednesday, October 4th, same time, 6 o'clock, same place. We are getting pretty good with these titles. Next lecture is The Price Right? Embracing Energy Efficiency in the Real Estate Market. This is one that I think we're very excited about. Hope you can join us. And then the final lecture of the series is on Wednesday, October 18th. Do we have a slide for that, Katie? No. Trust me. There's a flyer on the front table. So October 4th, October 18th, we'll have brownies again. I really appreciate your patience with us. And thank you so much for coming out in person. And thank you, all of you, for giving us your time. Good night.